Who would like to learn how to install a tachometer on an old truck today? I sure would love to, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that right quick. I'm gonna pull this hoss in though. Right in your face. Thank goodness she's such a pretty grill. Who else would want such a grill in their face? I did have to pull her in out of the heat though, because it is hot as hell outside right now. And I'm doing one of the worst things known to mankind, and that is electrical work. I don't want to end up throwing one of my nice tools that aren't going to be the cheapest thing to replace. But who else likes to ramble on and on and on when they are absolutely just passionate about something like working in the heat? Because I just love rambling. I could ramble all day about working in the heat. But you don't want to hear that, so I'm not going to. Just for you. Bruh. But seriously, all weirdness aside, let's tackle this rat's nest. Snap on.
Yeah.
Please don't judge my engine bay. I know it's ugly. I hate it too. Figured I'd mention it. If you're doing any kind of electrical work on your car, disconnect your battery, because getting shocked sucks. It's shocking.
Oh my god, bro.
Who does this guy think he is?
So what I did is I found an auxiliary lighting cable here. I cut it in half and I stripped the jacket off and I spliced it in nice with the light side of the tack. I'm going to run all 4 wires through that useless hole in the firewall, just like the other 20 useless holes on this firewall. It's like a block of Swiss cheese. Man, is it cold in the winter, I can tell you that much. Okay, so we got 2 wires coming through the useless, now useful hole in the firewall. We got the splice right here that I was talking about. That's for the auxiliary switch. Then we have this good old ground right here going to the fender support. Goes back behind the fender and back through the useless, now useful firewall hole. Now the surprisingly hard to find back view of the other side of the useless hole in the firewall. It's right up there. And these are the 2 wires on the inside that go right to the tack, which does turn on. Yeah, beauty. Then I can actually see what I'm doing at night. Awesome.
Apparently this is a big win for this dummy. Look at him go. Now this welder thinks he's an electrician.
And then for the 12-volt ignition source wire, we got 3 red wires to choose from. We got one there, we got one right there, and we got one in there. At least those are the 3 that I could find that lit the test light up when the ignition was on. Don't ask me if that's correct. We're about to find out. Okay, but it worked. No, it didn't. We got a splicage going on. This is one of the 3 red wires I was pointing out. All 3 seem to have some sort of connection to the 12-volt ignition source, which is your ignition. So we switch that, and oh, we got moving. Something's working. So that's 3 of 4 wires down, 1 more to go. Don't even dare ask about fuses. We don't need fuses. But the time has now come to do the wire to the coil. We're gonna go right here on the negative post. We're gonna run it over the brake booster and into the useless hole in the firewall. And now we got all 3 cables running through there. I got this like rubber material that I like folded up and zip tied and stuffed it through the useless hole in the firewall, acting as like a little grommet because I don't have any of them. We also have the signal wire from the tack to the negative post on the coil. And there's a backside view of the useless hole in the firewall, which is now no longer useless, so now I can call it the hole that has all my tack wires running through it. I gotta figure out how I'm gonna tidy all this stuff up. Okay, let's see what catches fire under here first. Alrighty, y'all, it's that moment of truth. Let's see what happens.
Utter failure. This welder no longer thinks he's an electrician.
I gotta say, it suddenly makes sense now that they're separate trades. So it is currently 2 days later, and things are working properly now this time. So basically there's 2 problems. One, the main 12-volt switch wire going to the tack right here was hooked up to the wrong wire. That one that I tapped into right here actually goes directly to my turn signal relay. So every time the truck was running and my turn signal was on, the tack would jump around each time the signal flashed. So I pulled everything apart. I pulled the steering wheel off, I pulled the ignition switch out, the turning indicator relay, I took everything out just so I could have better access to the wiring and I could figure out which wire was which, namely the 12-volt off. So it's not just sucking power when the ignition is off, because there's like the pink one and the red one here have a constant 12 volt coming to the switch from the battery. So if I tapped into that, the tach would always be on and then just kill the battery. So this black and red one was the like basically the 12 volts after the switch. So when the switch was on, power would flow through this, and so I tapped into it, the 12 volt side of the tach, to that wire. But then the other problem was that everything kept dying, like the battery wasn't getting a charge. That's a new alternator I installed a year and a bit ago. So I figured out that it was actually this 60 amp fuse which blew, which is blown 2 separate times. This is the third 60 amp fuse I put in here. So I think the most confusing part about this whole thing was whenever the truck started, after getting it jump started each time, everything would keep dying. Like the gauges, the lights, everything would start dying. The tach would work and then just start dying. So that's how I figured out the fuse was blown, because the battery wasn't getting any charge. So between that and me hooking up to the wrong wire, because I'm not an electrician, that was it. So after a full day of reevaluating life decisions and messing around with finicky Dodge wiring, we got her done. And now I know that if you have a 60 amp alternator, a 60 amp fuse isn't enough. So I'm gonna go to like a 65 or 70. And I've also learned that you can't just tap into any wire you want, which kind of seems like common sense, but now I like really know, because I've learned the hard way. At one point I did stop recording what I was doing, because honestly, I wasn't even sure what I was doing was going to end up working in the first place. So it's like, well, what's the point of having a video on something that's not even going to work? So I did stop recording for that, and then also for my sake of not wanting everybody to see me crying and screaming like a little girl at the age of 21.
Is that a zip tie holding this dummy's tack on?
God, bro. Oh, hell no.